and that council met somewhere in the Agora. The excavators, Homer Thompson, thinking here, the original excavator of the west side of the Agora, identifies this as a possible place between Building F, which served then perhaps as the home of the Printinese, and this other building over here. So we have a kind of enclosed area backing up to, and this kind of semicircular rock cut into the hill on which the Hephaestion sits now. And so perhaps in the courtyard out here, or even back in that rock cutting. And then we have, starting around 503, 504, the construction of the first Bouleuterian, the formal roofed structure. Also, as I mentioned, functioning perhaps as the storage place for the archives. Seating arrangement here, a kind of larger diagram, and then start with our restoration of it around 500 or so. And this has been restored in various ways. Here we have a roof structure with a solid front wall, 2 doorways. There would have been an inner wall with a doorway going in, and the seating, we'll see in a moment, around 3 sides here. Another possibility is to have the same configuration with a colonnaded front. And it's possible that it was initially with the wall front, later the colonnade replacing that. In any case, when we get inside, so we have the inside with the solid wall, the 2 doorways, this altar, not probably from this structure, but there was typically an altar in council houses. And then you see what the seating's looking like here, and there again with the column front. But looking from the speaker's platform, the bema here to the seating here for 500, the Cleisthenic reforms of the late 6th century created the council of 500, and so seating in here for 500. And we have in fact had acoustical analysis done of this building. So, what did it show? You're asking, I know. What it showed was that this served well. Back up for a second here, that this served well as an auditorium. Reverb was not a problem. If anything, what it probably did was augment the speaker's voice. So a speaker who knew how in particular to use the lower frequencies, the vowel sounds, could in fact play that building a little bit and use its slight reverb to accentuate some of the rhythms and cadences of his speech. Distance, again speaking at perhaps 80 decibels about this, 500 people would have been intelligible throughout, and most of the audience would have sat in what's called the reverberant field. So the direct speech coming from the speaker and the reverberation off the walls, they would have been in the midst of that. It'd be like surround sound. And they would have had sound all around. All right. At the end of the 5th century, the old Bouleuterian / Metron was succeeded by the new Bouleuterian. We see here the Tholos. We hurried through this. There are several reconstructions of this, and we have not and are not going to do an acoustical analysis of this, but we do so with several other buildings. This just illustrates what some of the preliminary seating arrangements might have been. This is a matter of dispute, as is the configuration or orientation of this building. Here we have it facing east, which is the way that Thompson, the original excavator, had it. More recently, Leslie Shear and John Camp now being the director of the Agora excavations, configure it with a southward orientation. And again, there are details that we don't need to get into here about that. But we've got some other Bouleuteria we can take a look at. This is the site of Priene in Asia Minor. We're going to be looking at the Bouleuterian over here. This is built in the 2nd century of BCE, had a capacity of 640 people. And so here is a photograph of it, you saw the plan, of its current state, altar in situ, and then the seating viewed from the speaker's position, and here a restoration of the interior from roughly the same perspective. So you can see a bit how that would look. And then looking from the seating out towards the speaker's area here, and this of course was all walled and roofed out there as well, and restored this way. Again with the speaker standing here and addressing this. The acoustical analysis of this indicated that it was an outstanding setting for oratory. that because of the banks of the seat, it focused the speaker's voice. 640 people in actually an area smaller than the old Bulletarian, so a superior setting in that respect, that the sound was easier to hear. Side distances as well, so that much more intimate, larger audience, 640 versus 500, much more intimate than the old Bulletarian, and much more efficient in terms of a speaking setting. And here we go to Miletus, the other site that we'll concentrate on in Asia Minor. Again, built in the 2nd century BCE. This, here's the plan, and then you see the current state. Seating capacity of 1,200 people. So you're going to see what that looks like in practical terms in a moment. So here's what the seating looks like as of 2009 when Patty and I were last there. And then from those remains, you saw, and other stuff lying around, Kirchen, the original excavator, restores the entire structure that way, and then the interior this way. Here we have this cutaway isometric that gives you a sense of that. Based on all these things then, we have done our own computer-generated representations, and so the BIMA, which may or may not have been in place here, it's hard to know, but in any case, we've again stuck an altar in there, and then the seating for 1,200 citizens. From the back corners, the southwest corner and the northwest corner. And so what we find then with this is that while distance was a factor, a speaker speaking at 80 decibels or louder, I won't demonstrate again, could have been heard throughout the building. Again, the reverberation was within acceptable limits, better than at the structure we're going to look at next, the last one we'll look at. Speech intelligibility put this as comparable, again, to a large house of worship that's intended for speeches, as opposed to organ music. And so it would be on that order. It's a large auditorium, large audience with decent acoustics given the circumstances, and sight distances are good as well, as you can see. All right, last place we're going to go to, who's back to Messini. We'll be quick here. We're going to now focus on this structure, the Bulletarian. You looked before at the Ecclesiasterian. This is the Bulletarian, and this is the way in which the excavator Orlando initially restored the interior. I won't get into the reasons why, but as you see, it becomes a very large, tall structure. So here's the Ecclesiasterian we looked at before. There's the Bulletarian. Get a sense of what the doorways would look like. So here's the current state, looking along the south side of the auditorium, along the east, south along the east side, and then there's a third bank of benches. So what we have is a very large building, very tall, with a single line of bench seating around the outside. Here is the restoration of that same view, the bench seating along the south side. We'll see in a moment across the eastern edge, and then along the north side here, and a very tall interior with these windows up here for air and light. Again, seating along the east side, restoration of the same view along the east side, and then it's back out to the doorways. All right. So, in our restoration, based on the archaeologists, this measures 17 meters to the top of the walls, a little over 20 meters to the top of the roof, big interior space, 6,000 cubic meters. It had seating for 112 people, and in the absence of banked seating, what we've got is a lot of reverberation. And indeed, with the mathematical analysis, the acoustical analysis showed that reverberation was a big problem here. Not distance, to be sure, not directionality, certainly, but reverberation, as you would expect. This is an echo chamber, and you might have 112 people sitting around the walls, but that's not enough soft bodies to absorb all the sound. But what was also found was that it depends on where you put the speaker. If you put the speaker back against that wall between the two doorways, reverberation is a huge problem. The reverberation time is over 4 seconds, so that means that the echo would be significant. If you move to the center, as you do here, then it falls to under 3, in some cases 2.5 seconds, depending on the frequency of the voice. And so there is no evidence to indicate where the speaker may have stood in this structure, but if he were to be understood, then he would have stood in the center. Otherwise, his speech would have been muddled by all of the reverb, and intelligibility would have been a problem. So, general findings indicate that bulletaria as enclosed roof structures generally serve well for their purposes, some better than others. You've seen a sample here of what those structures look like and some of the things that we're doing with them. In any case, going back to kind of my initial point here, you're looking at settings where, especially these where you had some reverberation, if you could take advantage of that reverberation and through your word choice and the phrasing of your speech, try to create some rhythmical segments to your speaking. That rhythm, those cadences, could have the kind of enchanting effect that Gorgias talks about. I will leave it there, and hopefully I've left enough time for some questions and discussion. So thank you very much for your attention.
Well, that was a fascinating analysis, and something I personally had not thought about before, but certainly will now. So any questions, please direct them.
We can
Anybody
have
have a question?
Yes?
Could you talk about why they decided to make that such a tall building with only like one row of seating?
Yeah, the way, if we go back, as a matter of fact, to, oh, here we are. Okay.